Saltwater pools can be easier to maintain than traditional chlorine pools, but only if you know what you're doing. I'm Matt from Swim University, and I get tons of questions about saltwater systems, and I've decided to answer everything in this one video. Questions like, why can't I get the pH levels right? And what happens if I have the wrong calcium hardness levels? How do I know if there's buildup in my salt cell? And what does my pool need for maintenance that a regular pool doesn't? Like I said, it's a packed video. So if you want to jump around, there are three main sections. One is how saltwater pools work. Number two is how to start up a saltwater pool if you're brand new or if you're opening up your pool for the season. And number three is how to maintain your saltwater pool. And if you have any questions after watching this video, and I really hope you don't, please leave a comment and I'll try to answer them. All right, let's dive in. First, how does a saltwater pool work? There's one common misconception that we need to clear up. A saltwater pool is still a chlorine pool. Your saltwater generator, also known as a chlorine generator, makes chlorine from the salt in your water. As salt water passes through the salt cell, it uses electrolysis to break down the salt into sodium and chlorine. That chlorine is what's used to sanitize your pool, just like a traditional pool. And the sodium reforms as sodium chloride, also known as salt, which gets recycled back into the water. That means, unlike chlorine, you don't have to constantly add salt to your pool. So the biggest difference is that instead of adding chlorine directly to your water, you're adding salt once or twice a year and letting the saltwater generator do the work. Okay, let's talk saltwater pool startup. Here's how to get your system set up and running right. Here are the chemicals that you need to start up your saltwater pool. You'll need all of these for ongoing maintenance as well. Alkalinity increaser or baking soda, pH increaser or soda ash, pH decreaser or muriatic acid, dichlor shock or liquid chlorine, oxidizer, which is also known as non-chlorine shock, cyanuric acid, which is also known as chlorine stabilizer, calcium hardness increaser, and pool grade salt. Now, if you're confused about each of these chemicals and you're not sure how to add the chemicals to your water, be sure to check out our other videos. Step number one, test your water. Once your saltwater generator starts running, you want it to be maintaining an already balanced pool. So test and balance your levels now before you turn on your salt system. You're going to want to check for total alkalinity, pH, chlorine, cyanuric acid, and calcium hardness. And if you're interested, you can use our Pool Care app to enter your test results and find out exactly what chemicals you need to add, how much of each, and when. If you know you have metals in your water, it'll be important to test and treat those before anything else. Use metal sequestrant before doing any of these steps. Step number two is adjust your total alkalinity. This helps keep your pH from fluctuating, so it's important to adjust it first. Your alkalinity should be between 80 and 120 parts per million. Use alkalinity increaser or baking soda to raise it, or pH decreaser or muriatic acid to lower it. Step number three is adjust your pH. Stable pH helps your chlorine to work properly. Your pH should be between 7.4 and 7.6, but saltwater pools tend to have chronically high pH. That's because when the saltwater generator runs, the pH naturally rises, so it's okay to keep it on the lower side for this step. Now, to bring your pH down, you can add pH decreaser or muriatic acid, and to raise it, you just use pH increaser. If you need more help balancing your pH, check out our other video on fixing your pH levels. Step number four is to add some chlorine. Your saltwater generator will produce chlorine later, but in the meantime, your chlorine levels should be in range to kill any contaminants in the water. Your free chlorine should be between 1 and 3 parts per million, with 3 parts per million being ideal. You can raise your chlorine by adding liquid chlorine to the water or dichlor shock. I would just avoid using cal hyposhock since that can cause calcium to build up in your salt cell. Now, if you're treating algae or cloudy water at this stage, you'll need to add a double or triple dose of shock. Check out our other videos on algae or shock if you need help here. Step number five is to add chlorine stabilizer. Now, chlorine stabilizer is also known as cyanuric acid or CYA, and it helps protect your chlorine from breaking down in direct sunlight. Your CYA should be between 30 and 50 parts per million. But some saltwater pool owners find it helpful to keep their levels a bit higher, around 60 to 80 parts per million. That's because higher CYA helps prevent your saltwater generator from working so hard, especially during periods of high sunlight exposure. It can also help extend the life of your salt cell since it doesn't have to make up for that loss of chlorine. When adding stabilizer, add it slowly to the water. If the CYA gets too high, the only way to lower it is by partially draining and refilling your pool. And if you added dichlor shock earlier, that already contains a little bit of CYA, so retest your levels before adding any stabilizer. We've got a helpful video on CYA if you want a deeper dive on this. Step number 6 is to adjust your calcium hardness. The right calcium hardness levels help protect your pool equipment and surfaces over the long run. That's between 175 and 225 parts per million for vinyl liners or fiberglass pools, and between 200 and 275 parts per million for concrete or plaster pools. But the salt cell inside your saltwater generator is prone to calcium buildup. Combined with the naturally high pH in your saltwater pool and high calcium levels can coat your salt cell. So keep your calcium on the lower end of these levels. Add a calcium hardness increaser to bring up these levels into range. But if you already have high calcium hardness levels, you'll need to partially refill your pool with fresh filtered water. Always add a hose filter to help remove any minerals before they enter your pool. Step number 7 is to add salt. Now, once your other levels are balanced, you can start adding salt directly to your pool water. Check your saltwater chlorinator for its suggested salinity levels, but it's usually between 2,700 and 3,500 parts per million. You want to only add pool-grade salt to the water. These usually come in 40-pound bags. And if you're starting with no salt in the water and you have a 10,000-gallon pool, you're going to need to add about 6 to 7 40-pound bags of salt. Yeah, that's a lot of salt. But the good news is that salt tends to stay in the water and gets recycled by the saltwater generator, so you only need to add it maybe once or twice a year. You can brush the salt around your pool if it's collected anywhere on the bottom and run your pump and filter for several hours or overnight to help the salt completely circulate and dissolve. Step number 8 is to turn on your salt system. Now, once the levels are balanced and the right amount of salt is added, you can turn on your saltwater generator. It'll start producing chlorine with enough salt in the water. Now that you know how to start up your saltwater pool, here's what to do for ongoing maintenance. By the way, if you want all of this information in one place, we have an entire section in the Pool Care Handbook all about saltwater pool maintenance. And you can get your copy at swimu.com/book or by using the links below. Saltwater pools follow the same basic principles as any pool: good circulation, regular cleaning, and balanced chemistry. But there are specific things that you need to watch out for. Number 1 is check your salt if your pool water gets diluted. You'll typically need to add salt at the beginning of the season, but unlike chlorine, salt doesn't evaporate. But it does get diluted when you add fresh water or after a heavy rain. Check your saltwater generator's display for your pool salt level. It's also worth checking your salt levels manually once a month using a saltwater test strip or a digital salinity reader, just in case your generator is having issues. Number 2 is to test and balance your pH weekly. Saltwater generators naturally produce high pH, so if your pH is above 7.8, you'll need to add pH decreaser or muriatic acid to bring it down. You can also adjust your generator's runtime. The longer your salt system runs, the higher your pH will climb. Number 3 is to watch your free chlorine levels. Even though your generator is making chlorine automatically, it's worth testing your free chlorine levels weekly. If your chlorine is constantly low, check your saltwater levels first. Then look at your generator's output setting. You might need to increase it. If your chlorine is too high, simply reduce the output or the runtime. Number 4 is to keep your cyanuric acid levels up. Keep your CYA levels a bit higher, between 60 and 80 parts per million. Like I mentioned before, the higher CYA helps prevent your saltwater generator from working so hard. You want to test your CYA levels monthly, especially at the beginning of the season and whenever you add fresh water to your pool. If you're adding dichlor shock regularly, that will add some CYA to the water. Otherwise, you'll need to add chlorine stabilizer. Number 5 is to clean your salt cell every 3 months. Your salt cell is where the chlorine conversion happens, but it's also where calcium buildup occurs. Inspect your salt cell every 3 months. Look for white flaky deposits on the metal plates inside. If you see a buildup, rinse it with a hose. Now, for stubborn deposits, you want to soak the cell in a muriatic acid solution that's 5 parts water to 1 part acid. And always add acid to water, never the reverse. Wear protective gear like goggles, gloves, and long sleeves, and work in a well-vented area. Number 6, shock weekly or use the superchlorinate mode. While saltwater pools are more consistent at sanitizing, they still need help with high contaminant loads, especially after heavy use or storms. Now, if your water looks murky or green, you can add dichlor shock or liquid chlorine to help break up the contaminants. Otherwise, add an oxidizer or non-chlorine shock each week. This will help break up combined chlorine and oxidized contaminants. Again, I would avoid cal hypo shock that contains calcium, which can cause scaling in your salt cell. Now, if your generator has a boost or a superchlorinate mode, you can use that instead of manually adding shock. However, it will put more strain on your salt system. Number 7, monitor calcium hardness monthly. Saltwater systems are prone to calcium scaling, especially when the pH runs high. Now, if the calcium gets too high, you'll see white flakes in your pool and a buildup in your salt cell. And the only way to lower calcium hardness is to partially drain and refill your pool with fresh water. Remember to keep your calcium levels on the lower end of the recommended range. And if you need more help with calcium hardness, be sure to check out our other video. Number 8 is to watch the water temperature. Saltwater systems will stop working properly when the water temperature is 60 degrees Fahrenheit or below. When the water temperatures rise in the summer, your saltwater generator will have to work overtime. Supplement with tablets or granular chlorine when the water temperature is below 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and shock the water and watch your CYA when the temperatures are high. Number 9, run your pump enough. If you have a variable speed pump, make sure that your pump is running fast enough to trigger your salt system's flow sensors. These systems won't operate properly at very low speeds. Number 10, clean your pool. Your saltwater system doesn't eliminate the need for regular pool cleaning. You still need to skim out debris, brush surfaces weekly, vacuum regularly, clean your skimmer and pump baskets each week, and backwash or clean your filter. And finally, here are some common saltwater pool issues and solutions. If you see white flakes in your pool, it's usually calcium buildup, not salt. This happens when your pH runs too high or your salt cell needs cleaning. You can lower your pH and clean your salt cell. If your generator shows an error or won't produce chlorine, check your salt levels first. Low salt is the most common cause. Also, make sure that your salt cell is clean and properly connected. Now, if you're getting algae, your free chlorine is probably too low. You can test and adjust your generator's output and shock your water with dichlor shock or liquid chlorine. Remember, saltwater systems work slower than adding chlorine directly. Finally, be sure to check out the Saltwater Pool Maintenance Guide in the Pool Care Handbook. You can grab your copy at swimu.com/book or by using any of the links below. Thanks again, and happy swimming.